By the end of this year, we anticipate identifying and having data on over 10 million vehicles per day. But we were fascinated by just the ability to build and scale networks super quickly with a decentralized community incented model. So we collate all this data, and people who've bought those nodes are now receiving Testnet tokens.
I remember you guys actually as Zeppelin from last cycle. And I think there's actually a lot of interesting kind of backstory and company lore, even before Zeppelin, in terms of your background in Linksys and wireless and exiting a few other startups. So typically we just skip background, but I think yours is interesting enough that we should maybe kind of quickly go through your Linksys experience and then Zeppelin and last cycle and what you guys were doing and what you were mining and how that all went. And then kind of bring us to the rebrand to 375 AI and what you're all doing now.
My name is Harry, CEO and co-founder at 375. My background's been entrepreneur my whole career. Started my first company when I was 21. Sold that business a few years later to Singtel for $320 million. That was a data and analytics company helping mobile operators, mobile carriers monetize their user base. Then went on to be president of another location data business called Bliss, which used the whereabouts of phones and mobile and digital devices to understand the movement of people in the real world. So using digital devices as a proxy to understand consumer behavior. We raised money from Unilever, the large consumer packaged goods company, and we had customers such as McDonald's, Walmart, and so on, large retailers who would leverage this information to better understand their customers. So as we get into 375, you'll see how there's definitely some synergies with what we're doing and some of my previous experience. I then kind of broke away from my, I guess, strictly speaking, entrepreneurial roots, and I was appointed CEO of Linksys. Linksys is, I guess, the OG of networking and Wi-Fi. The company is 36 years old, just a shy bit younger than me, and I was CEO there when we took the business private. It was owned by Foxconn. We raised $160 million to kind of rejuvenate the business, and we built a whole host of new products to support that. And it was really there that the genesis of what was Zeppelin and now is 375 AI came about. And it was at my time at Linksys where I got the pleasure of working with Rob, my co-founder. And it was there that we discovered things like, at the time, pollen, helium, and early days of Xnet, I guess. And we kind of were fascinated by what was Deepin didn't exist then. It was DY. But we were fascinated by just the ability to build and scale networks super quickly with a decentralized community incented model, and became so convicted in the concept that Rob and I decided to leave, and very shortly thereafter Zeppelin / 375 AI was born, and that was just over 2.5 years ago.
100%. And then what were you all doing at Zeppelin? I remember you had I think an exclusive deal with one of the largest billboard companies, and you were deploying a lot of DY equipment, right? So what was the idea with Zeppelin, and how has that changed with what you're doing now?
Originally, we started out with the mission to become the largest enterprise grade deployer of kind of carrier grade decentralized wireless stuff. So building small cell infrastructure for whichever project might be yielding good results at any given time. So we are large deployers of helium mobile. We are large deployers of Xnet. We learned a lot about how to deploy, where to deploy, and kind of ironed out a lot of the a lot of the kind of early stumbling blocks that we had. One of the ways we did that, as you rightly say, is strike a 10-year exclusive relationship with Outfront Media, who are one of the largest billboard companies in the world, second largest in the US. They have a footprint of 400,000 signs and screens across America. 50,000 or so of these are large billboards that you'll see on the side of highways, and they have a footprint across America that reaches 7 out of 10 Americans on a weekly basis. So these billboards are not placed in random places. They're placed where people go and people are. And therefore, we really felt that they're very under leveraged locations in terms of their value. So as you rightly say, initially we were deploying and became large deployers and are still one of the largest deployers of some of these DY projects or deep-in projects in the wireless space, as they now have kind of fallen under that umbrella. And that's really where we cut our teeth in deep-in, discovered what we liked, what we didn't, and we're super grateful to the, I guess, early pioneers of deep-in. I've become go-go gadget man of deep-in. There isn't a deep-in thing I don't have. My car's full of stuff. My house has got a flagpole with all kinds of things attached to it, and I test everything I possibly can. And it was through doing that really the business from Zeppelin evolved into 375 AI as it is today. And we've taken, I guess, the pieces that we like from the whole spectrum of deep-in projects, the pieces that we understood well as well, and what as a team we have strong skill sets in. And of course, from my Linksys background, networking and manufacturing of products and a great scale is something that I've come to become quite familiar with, as well as some of the members of the team. So that was where we really started focusing on building our own project, which we're now happy to have launched in an incentivized testnet just this week.
Super cool. And I want to jump into that in a second, but just personal curiosity, is there any significance to the digits 375 in the company name?
So yes, there is. So Highway 375 is the extraterrestrial highway that runs through Nevada, through Area 51. So number one, the domain was available. I guess that's the unsexy way of saying it.
Always.
Number
and
two,
trademark too, probably, right?
exact. Number two, we kind of, obviously vehicular data is something we're capturing huge amounts of. Billboards are on the side of roads, and that's where our primary deployments initially are taking place. Plus, we see the advent of AI being something that's very mysterious to many, as is alien life, and therefore we saw a kind of bridge between the two. Maybe it's vague, but we like it.
I know, I like it. Extraterrestrial, otherworldly. That's awesome. Yeah, that leads me right into what I wanted to talk about next, which is actually that testnet and the closed beta. So how are contributors currently getting involved? Like, what can they do? What does involvement look like for them?
So we, earlier on this year, we pre-sold our first 50 units of hardware that we've produced and are being deployed as we speak. That's 375 Edge. These devices are very sophisticated. They cost $30,000 to buy, and we sold those to the community several months ago. Those devices cost us almost that to make. They are very high-powered pieces of equipment. They have $10,000 of GPU from NVIDIA inside them. They have 6 very specialized cameras, which then use AI at the edge to process all that computer vision data into digital metadata. So object detection of vehicles, other things that might be taking place on roadways, people, makes, models, colors, license plates, commercial vehicles, understanding the US Department of Transport numbers of trucks and trailers, plus any signifying marks like FedEx, Amazon, UPS, etc. So we collate all this data, and people who've bought those nodes are now receiving Testnet tokens. In addition to that, we've launched 375 Go, which is a free app available on Android and iOS today or now, and that enables people to connect their wallet, create an account. They receive an airdrop of 375 tokens as a welcome. And what that app enables them to do is contribute additional passive data to the network. So this app collects and collates various RF data, so radio frequency data from cell towers, from Wi-Fi networks, as well as your location. It doesn't capture anything about your browsing or anything personal. It's simply measuring signal strength, signal speeds of the varying networks that your device may be connected to at that time. It's a hex model, so the more coverage and the more places that you go, and that app is sitting in the background scanning, the more rewards you will receive as part of this testnet. We anticipate the testnet lasting for about 12 weeks, at which point mainnet will launch, and participants in this testnet phase will be rewarded with an airdrop of mainnet tokens upon our TGE.
Super cool. Well, I just downloaded the app. I'm going to need to sign up after this conversation, but I'm excited to check that out. It looks super clean from like a UI UX perspective, and I think it's awesome. You kind of get an initial airdrop, and the model of having a very low barrier to entry for contributors on one side of the business, I think makes a lot of sense, right? Like it's not that many people that can pay $30K for a really like high-end device, but you don't need that many of those if they're placed in good locations, and you want a way for the average kind of Joe to get involved.
Exactly. So there's a couple of things to those points. One, yes, you're absolutely right to point out these devices, which you would, I guess, consider like a macro node. We don't need tens of thousands of those. In fact, with a couple of thousand across America, we can have great coverage across almost every major US market. Just with the 50 initial devices that are being deployed, as I say, as we speak, by the end of this year, we anticipate identifying and having data on over 10 million vehicles per day, which is more than 10% of the average number of vehicles on the road in a given day in America. There's 250 million or so registered vehicles, but only about 85 million are driven each day uniquely. So already out the gate, we have substantial scale of information, and hence why we've been able to secure some initial demand for that data out the gate. So when our mainnet launches, we will have immediate buy and burn of our token by the foundation, thanks to those commercial relationships that we've been busy striking. It's quite, that's certainly something we've really focused on. Demand. I think that's going to be what sets apart the next phase of Deepin. All eyes are on that, in my opinion.
100%. Yeah. So for the 375 Edge devices, is the typical setup like on a billboard overlooking a major highway, or is it like in a dense urban area where there's like a mall, or could it be both?
So yeah, 375 Edge is on interstates and highways. So it could be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lanes of traffic going, 60, 70 miles an hour. And we're able to pull out that information and convert it using AI at the edge into this meta information. To your point around, $30,000 really prices it out of many Deepin enthusiasts' price brackets. We are developing and we'll be pre-selling a product called 375 Street, which is designed for more urban environments, which anyone could deploy. The price point will be around $1,000. This will be a miniaturized version of 375 Edge with 2 cameras, a number of sensors, and could be deployed outside a business, a coffee shop, a restaurant, your apartment building, your home, and you as the deployer will have access to the camera functionality. We never receive any of the camera data because the data is processed at the edge, but you'll be rewarded for contributing that data and given some analytics for your business or your home to understand the number of people who walk past, the number of dogs, the number of people with coffee cups in their hand, the number of cars, and what the different makes and models were. And it's this information that will start to piece together from the large nodes to the medium-sized nodes, plus then on the far edge, mobile devices and mobile phones that people have installed the app, as you just have on. That starts to give us a very, very accurate and detailed picture as to what is going on in the real world from a data perspective. And that's data that hasn't been readily available at scale and quality until today. You know, there's digital data spewing every seam. And once an LLM has read every book and scanned every website, there's diminishing returns to doing much more of that. This adds a fourth dimension to modeled awareness, and we believe there's a massive opportunity in unlocking this very, very new and exciting data set.
Man, you guys are on top of it. I was just thinking in my head, it'd be cool if there was like a mid price point device that also could look at like a street. Like I was kind of, the thing I was thinking of was like maybe an apartment building in downtown, and the person's balcony is like 5 or 10 floors up, and they have a great view of like a lot of things going on. That could probably be like an ideal place to put one of those devices. And it almost kind of reminds me, like the analogy is kind of like you guys are like the data providers are like the grass of real world activity. Like if grass is trying to provide this LCR, live context retrieval, for LLMs to allow them to not just be trained on data up to the last 12 months and they don't know what's going on kind of yesterday or the week before, you guys are kind of doing the same thing for maybe it's like live activity retrieval or something. And feeding that data to LLMs is super interesting.
Yeah, I certainly see how graphs, for example, are providing a new dimension of real-time browsing behavior. We're providing a new dimension of what's going on on Canal and Howard Street in New York, or what's going on the 101 in San Francisco. And so you know, they're both unique data sets, and there is as compute has accelerated in terms of the availability of compute, and that's thanks to obviously centralized cloud solutions, but also decentralized GPU projects. These machines need ingredients, otherwise they can't make a good meal. And what 375 is building is the ingredient food for businesses to innovate upon what they're already doing with data.
100%. Yeah. And the use case I think of on the highways, at least, is kind of maybe around just like traffic and shipping and logistics. Like I've heard of hedge funds, you know, looking at satellite imagery of Walmart parking lots, for instance, to like try to determine what next quarter's revenue numbers will be like, or whatever. Like, I think there's a lot of similarities here in terms of, like, when you said FedEx and UPS trucks and Amazon trucks and whoever else could be like tagged and identified on the highways, and then if you kind of string all the 375 edge devices together, you'd even be able to see, like, you know, how long it took or where that truck ended up. And I think the applications for that data are kind of limitless, honestly.
Exactly. And you've named a couple of use cases in that example there, but hedge funds looking to use real world data as inference for market performance or results. There are ongoing conversations in that category specifically to buy the data for exactly those reasons. If Target's got a if Target's getting more cars this month versus last month, what does that mean? And beginning to get correlations between, and the beauty of AI is that, and machine learning is that these correlations that previously would be uncorrelatable now can be, and in an automated and cost-effective manner with evolving technology.
100%. Yeah, I'm really excited to check out the app one, and get involved in the testnet, but also for the token launch. And speaking of that, you guys have been very public about building on Solana, launching on Solana. So I'm curious, what drew you to the ecosystem? Was it the technology, the culture? What do you like about kind of building on Solana and the chain selection choice there?
We made that decision, probably over a year ago now, and we've had great support from the Solana team. That was certainly a contributing factor to getting to going with them. And I think, given the current rise in its proliferation amongst chains, it's certainly exciting to see that it's continuing to perform well. Of course, it is a home for a lot of other DePIN peers, which was a factor because we obviously want to kind of fish where the fish are, and if investors and retail traders are used to the Solana ecosystem for other DePIN stuff, then I think that it's good that you have some strength in numbers. So that was they were the primary reasons. Of course, speed and low transaction costs made it also an obvious choice.
For sure. And then in terms of the token, sounds like you've done some thinking on the demand side, right? Like having demand and revenue buy and burn the token, or at least accrue value to the token. But what about on the kind of supply side as a token incentive? Like, have you guys laid out or made public your plans there in terms of how the token will be used as an incentive and just any more utility it'll have?
So, generally speaking, 42% of all tokens in issuance will be emitted to the community over an 8-year period. And the foundation will take 80% of all the demand side revenues that are generated and buy and burn tokens to help kind of regulate supply. So that's kind of generally speaking what happens. Now, of course, we have to divide up the allocations of tokens based initially on participation. So as I mentioned with the mobile app 375 Go, the more hexes you cover, the more share of the epoch allowance that you'll receive. If you're a node owner initially, and very similar to how many DePIN projects began, is kind of you're rewarded based on kind of existing, and then it will move more to a data credit type model as we are able to attribute value against individual sets of data. So it will be both based on quantity, quality, and utility being dollars and usage.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. Initially, when you don't have that much data in yet, it's worth rewarding people for being online and contributing data. But once you have a better sense of your demand side and what data they will actually want to purchase, and I'm sure some locations will stand out as just like very superb, and there's a ton of demand for that data, then you'll want to reward those people more to make sure that they stay online and stay in that spot.
Exactly, and encourage more to find similar types of locations. And I think the 375 Street device is something that people can self-deploy. The 375 Edge device, whilst we're selling those devices, and people own them and receive the rewards, we're deploying them on their behalf on these billboards because of the complex nature of the device. So we did that intentionally because it enables us to control the quality of data that we have from the beginning. We didn't want to have a flood of low quality supply side because it would hamper our ability to go and drive significant demand side deals that are going to be key to the sustainability of the token when it's trading.
100%. Yeah, well, definitely looking forward to that. If you had a call to action for our listeners here in terms of getting involved or finding out more about you guys on the internet, where would you want to direct them, or what would you want to ask them to do?
So please do check out 375.ai and on our X as well as on Discord. And then, both Android and iOS, we have apps in both the app stores called 375 Go. Testnet, incentivized Testnet is open, and you can join the wait list. Hopefully your wait won't be too long, and I will make sure you get bumped to the top, Connor.
Awesome. Well, I'll sign up right now, and I appreciate you coming on. This has been super, super cool to catch up about what you guys are building, and very excited for Testnet to finish and mainnet launch Q1 of next year.